we don't really understand at a deeper level that we are what we eat. And I usually say to people, you know, you look down at your dinner plate and what you see doesn't appear like the raw material for hair or skin or teeth or nails. But that's exactly what it is. We are just food recycling machines.
People don't take care of themselves for one reason or another, and they come to the doctor expecting to be kind of bailed out by taking a medicine, a chemical, in order to treat the disease.
I mean, if we look back at the last 30 years, Homo sapiens is in a really sorry state. There is no question that there has been an increase in mental health problems. And the World Health Organization say that mental health problems have become the major area of health concern.
Two-time Nobel Prize-winning chemist Linus Pauling also championed the use of vitamins as treatment. Pauling coined the term orthomolecular medicine in 1968. The Greek ortho means correct, so orthomolecular means the right molecules in the right amounts.
The medical profession has been very hostile toward orthomolecular medicine, especially the psychiatric profession. I wasn't even aware of it, of course, until 1968 when Linus Pauling published his very famous paper in Science called Orthomolecular Psychiatry. Pauling never accepted anyone's word. He did his own thinking. You know, Pauling was the world's most famous scientist. He had a double Nobel Prize, one for his work with chemistry. In fact, his work in chemistry is the absolute basis of all modern medicine. He showed how molecules react with each other.
They started using nutrients to help people's heads, feed your heads, and lo and behold, their whole body got better because nutrients don't just feed the head. Nutrients feed the whole body. And when you feed the body and the body gets healthier, that feeds relationships. And if you feed relationships, then societies and cultures improve. And when they improve, nations stop warring. And when nations stop warring, then you can start taking care of the planet again. And so all of this begins with nutrition.
It's literally only 200 generations ago, we were all hunters and gatherers. We had no choice but to eat everything organic, everything was whole. And we would eat seeds and fruits and vegetables. All the animals we ate were wild animals. A wild animal has maybe 5% of its body weight as fat. Most of the animals we eat today, even organic animals, you're looking at 20%. So food has phenomenally changed. And now that we know how our biology works in relation to food, it would be surprising if we hadn't changed how we think, how we feel, and our pattern of diseases, which clearly are escalating out of control.
The brain is very particularly dependent on nutrition because this organ is 2 pounds in weight, and yet it consumes 20% of circulating oxygen, glucose, and other nutrients. And so, if you like, I describe the brain as a nutrient hog. It's using up 10 times more, it's 10 times more metabolically active. So where there's a shortfall in diet, and where that plate contains stripped down ersatz food, then of course the brain is going to be one of the first places that's affected. And now we can see from studies that particularly depriving the developing brain in utero of nutrients is leading to lifelong health problems, mental health and physical health.
One of the problems is the scale of food processing, and many people think in terms of grains and sugars and how they have been processed. There's an interesting historical element here in that the ancient Romans knew more about grain processing than people did up until the early part of the 20th century. That knowledge had been lost for almost 2 millennia. We've caught up, and we've probably superseded what the Romans had done in terms of not just refining grains, refining sugars, refining and creating all sorts of artificial fats. And most people, unless they are very mindful of what they are eating, are basically eating in this sea of junk food. The solution is really very simple, and I can't claim credit for the idea, but it's basically going back to fresh foods, avoiding almost anything that comes in a bottle, jar, can, or box.
These processed foods bring about inflammatory conditions, and these inflammatory conditions are associated with all of the problems that we have today, including psychiatric conditions, neurological conditions, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and so on.
And I believe that the pharmaceutical companies do see nutrient therapy and the use of supplements and the whole orthomolecular approach as being a bit of a competitor. And so that's part of it. There's also a kind of orthodoxy or a belief in the medical school training that anything that has to do with nutrition is always going to border on quackery. Matter of fact, I was told during medical school, any doctor that prescribes a vitamin, by definition, is a quack.
One other thing I'd like to underline is that when we go through medical school, the first 2 years the first year we learn a lot about anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. And then starting in the second year, we get to pharmacology. And what happens is that the attitude in medical school is that the physiology and biochemistry, well, that's you have to know that. But the real medicine is pharmacology. And that is the orientation of physicians. And what we are doing in orthomolecular psychiatry and orthomolecular medicine is we're going back to physiology and biochemistry rather than pharmacology. We assume that the body has the ability to heal itself if given half a chance, and the way that happens is by supplying the body with what it needs and trying to remove things that are toxic to it. Basically, what we're dealing with is a culture of life and a culture of death. And the culture of life is to try to supply the body with what it needs and to keep away toxic things. I think the culture of life is an orthomolecular approach. The culture of death is one that focuses on profits. And that's what motivates everything. So it's the financial situation that is motivating the development of the drugs and paying dividends to the stock holders and things like that. That's what's important. That's what drives things.
Of course, this is the future of medicine. I mean, it works. I mean, number one, it works. Number two, it's safe. So why aren't we all doing this? And I think the bottom line is it is money. The pharmaceutical industry have such a tight hold on medical training. So the average doctor just simply doesn't learn this stuff. And by the time they come out of medical school, they've got all this knowledge about how to diagnose diseases and which drugs to use and so on. And they've often been taught that particular nutrients, just aren't effective, sort of drug versus nutrient. But of course, this whole approach is not about, a different kind of pill for an ill. It's actually an entirely different approach. And then when you couple that with the fact that you simply cannot do orthomolecular medicine in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it really requires a much longer and more detailed involvement with the patient to really find out about their lifestyle. And also when you find out that You know, it's relatively easy to get someone to take a pill, but to change a behavior as fundamental as eating, and that really takes a lot of work. So doctors are neither trained in the science of this, nor are they trained in the practice of how you would do it.
And now we are in the era of big pharma. We have huge companies that spend billions of dollars of research and investigation. The investigation is not really that hot because they don't do much original stuff. They allow much of the original stuff is done for them by university professors who don't get paid for it. So we are giving them free research personnel. But as soon as something seems to be valuable, they take out a patent on it and they make the money out of it. There's no profit today, and this sounds very cynical, there's no profit today in getting people well. Our society is based upon the fact that we have to have a certain proportion of people sick so that we can treat them.
I mean, really, as a species, we are not well. And whatever approach that we've been employing within medicine, it's clearly not delivering. And I think that all the fingers are pointing very, very strongly at our 21st century diet and lifestyle. And I do sincerely hope that governments particularly and the medical profession as a whole will stop being so blinkered, because these diseases are not going to be solved by some magic drug.
Science is a way of investigating phenomena. Many answers. It doesn't give us the final answer. We don't know anything, do we? Let's all think about it. How is it possible for the Earth to go around the sun? We're millions of miles away. What's that fantastic attraction that keeps us from flying off into space? Well, we have laws. We have the laws of gravity. We have the laws of movement. Newton made those very clear. We have all these laws. We know that these things happen, but we don't understand why they happen. I think there is some kind of unity in the whole universe. How it came about, I don't have the slightest idea, but there is something. There is something called life force. There's a fantastic tenacity to living, which is hard to understand. I don't have the answer, but one day we're going to have the answers, and when orthomolecular medicine has taken over all of medicine, instead of spending billions of dollars examining one drug after another that's toxic, we will now start to look exactly at each particular disease and find out what are the needs for that particular disease. That's what's going to happen. The potatoes will contain a mixture of almost all the vitamins, but in very small amounts. But they are particularly lacking in the vitamin Bs. They don't have enough Bs. I already have 300 toxic compounds in my blood, so do you. We'll never ever live again in a pure free world unless humanity gets destroyed. And the best way to deal with the pollutants that we have already is to take lots of vitamins who act as a safety device. It helps the liver get rid of all these toxins. Come and tell me, can you handle 3 of these?
Sure. Well, I'll just take 2 for now.
And this is for you.